The new price of premium motor spirit, otherwise known as petrol, has been approved by the Nigerian National Petroleum Company and officially communicated to the marketers. This is at the backdrop of the West African country's president, Muhammadu Buhari's unveiling of the entity as now a commercial oil company limited by shares. This will form part of the conversation today, even as we bring you local and international business stories. This is Business Edge. I am Lekan Onabanjo. Let's start with the African business headlines. Italian prosecutors ended their investigation into a $1.3 billion oil field deal in Nigeria, clearing executives, including ENI Chief Executive Claudio Descalzi and energy giants Shell and ENI. At the beginning of an appeal hearing into one of the largest corruption cases in the history of the oil business, Attorney General Celestina Gravina signaled that the prosecution did not intend to pursue the case. The appeal court formally took note of the decision, meaning the criminal case will be closed and the acquittal of all defendants will become final. The appeal will now only concern civil proceedings as Nigeria has sued for compensation. The largest cotton dealer in Zimbabwe, Kotco Holdings Limited, has reportedly forecasted a 26% decrease in total cotton intake for 2022 compared to last year, citing the effect of bad weather on production. The predicted intake was downgraded from 116,000 tons in 2021 to 85,600 tons this season because of the late start of the rains and variable rainfall patterns. The overall amount of cotton consumed in 2017 fell short of the anticipated 150,000 tons. However, the presidential free cotton input scheme, which assisted thousands of farmers to increase productivity, had a considerably positive impact on production for the 2021-2022 season. Kenya's official foreign reserves have fallen to 941.5 billion Kenyan shillings. That's about $7.953 billion in the week ended July 14, with the import cover dropping to the lowest level in a year at 4.59 months. With debt repayment pressure, Kenya's foreign exchange reserves reduced by 102.3 billion Kenyan shillings from the week ended December 30, when it recorded 1.04 trillion Kenyan shillings, that's about $8.817 billion, representing 5.39 months import cover. Analysts have attributed the drop to external debt repayments, which remained the biggest source of outflows, including Eurobond coupon repayment made in June. And now the board of directors of the African Development Bank approved a development financing for Egypt worth $271 million within the framework of the rapid financing mechanism to face the repercussions of the global food crisis. Rania Al-Mashat, Minister of International Cooperation, said that the development funding comes within the framework of the government's efforts to combat the challenges facing development in the current period as a result of global development and their related impact on food security. Now, the Minister of International Cooperation added that the soft development finance has a repayment period of about 20 years in addition to a 5-year grace period, which reflects the importance of these soft development funds in supporting development efforts in different countries and emphasizes the strategic relationship between Egypt and its multilateral development partners. Now, those are our headlines for this morning. We'll go on a quick break now, and when we return, we'll delve into our first topic for today. You're watching Business Edge. President Muhammadu Buhari on Tuesday unveiled the new Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, a landmark event that officially changes the oil firm from a wholly state-run entity to a commercial oil company limited by shares. The NNPC Limited is expected to be managed as a private energy enterprise, unlike the alleged former corruption-ridden government organization. The unveiling took place at the Presidential Banquet Hall in Abuja. Now, according to Buhari, NNPC Limited now will operate as a commercial oil company with over 200 million shareholders with integrity and excellence. The official unveiling came weeks after the corporation transitioned into a company whose operations will be regulated by the Companies and Allied Matters Act. The legal transition based on the new Petroleum Industry Act took effect from July 1. And now the NNPC completed its incorporation in September last year, weeks after the PIA was signed into law by President Buhari. Let's watch this excerpt.
This is a landmark event for the Nigerian oil industry. Our country places high premium in creating the right atmosphere that supports investment and growth to boost our economy and continue to play an important role in sustaining global energy requirements. We are transforming our petroleum industry to strengthen its capacity and market relevance for the present and future global energy priorities.
This indeed is a new day, a new hope, and a new opportunity to upscale our relevance in the global energy community as Africa's largest energy company, endowed with the best human resources one can find anywhere in the industry. NNPC Limited is positioned to lead Africa's gradual transition to new energy by deepening natural gas production to create low-carbon alternatives and positively change the story of energy poverty at home and around the world. We have taken a strategic initiative to achieve our mandate of ensuring energy security for our country by rolling out a comprehensive expansion plan to grow our fuel retail presence from the 547 to over 1,500 outlets within the next 6 months.
And joining me from Lagos, Nigeria is Bongo Adi, Economist and Faculty at the Lagos Business School, Pan Atlantic University. Glad to have you join us, Dr. Bongo, on Business Edge.
Thank you for having me.
All right, now, as President Muhammadu Buhari unveiled the new Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, changing the oil firm from a wholly state-run to a commercial entity. So tell us, would you say that this move was long overdue? Would it change anything? And do you think it will demystify the entity?
Well, of course, it's long overdue. If you recall, President Obasanjo did something similar in as far back as 2006 or 2007, thereabout, when some of the refining companies were sold. But when President Yaradua came to power in 2007, he reversed those sales and then resorted to status quo ante. So yes, it's quite long overdue. But will this new move change the character of the company? These things they say that the wolf changes its colors, but not its true character. Because when we look at it, the governance system still remains effectively what it is. NNPC, Nigerian National, the acronym still remains the same, so it hasn't changed. So it's still NNPC Limited. It used to be NNPC for short in the past. So the only thing that has changed is that it's now a limited liability company. Okay, it can sell shares on the floors of the stock exchange. Like every traded company, it becomes a public interest, and then that sheds the light on its performance. So people can now know more about how the inner workings, unlike in the past when there is no transparency and there is no public scrutiny regarding how it does its business. But now that seems to be the only achievement, if you ask me, with this new change of nomenclature.
So a bit of changes in some areas and a status quo remaining in other areas. But one would have thought that it would bring about a wholesome change for the entity, because one of the allegations is one of the reasons why this new outlook for NNPC has come on board is because of the issue of accountability and transparency, and of course allegations that it actually runs on a corrupt-based system. So if we're having a new outlook for NNPC, what do you think it must do to ensure that this refurbishment translates into a thorough image for it?
When it comes to governance model that will ensure transparency, because that's what we're talking about here. How do we get NNPC Limited to be transparent and accountable? So yes, that's the real issue here. Now, it is the governance system and the general market discipline that compel operators in a market system to be transparent and accountable. So it's not really something, a decision that firms, choose to make on their own. They are forced to do that, and that's the beauty of the market system. Now, in the case of NNPC Limited, what has changed, as I said earlier, is simply the nomenclature. As it were, it still remains the only company that has a license, government license, to exploit the natural resource, which is petroleum in this case. So within NNPC, it has a motley of companies. I don't know how many, there are just so many of them. So operating under this same behemoth. Now, what we see, the best we can hope for, I think, will be like a benevolent monopolist, not even a discriminating monopolist. So I wouldn't say that it will be like a competitive market or a competitive firm. Now, if it were a competitive firm, then I can tell you, yes, your hope, your expectation for a market-driven transparency and accountability, I mean, the discipline that the market imposes will be realized, will be achieved. But in this case, we are not still seeing real competition in that sense, because NNPC still remains what it is. It has transformed from a government monopoly to a commercial monopoly, as it were. So would that make it more transparent? Will it make it more accountable? Well, it remains to be seen.
Now, under this new arrangement, the company will be regulated and monitored by the Companies Allied Matters Act. But before now, we used to have an NNPC that used to refuse to obey summons by lawmakers. So are you saying we should not be optimistic about this sort of impunity? Are you saying that they would continue to not obey orders when they are being called upon to probably rectify their accounts or give an account of the operations of the system?
Well, let's look at it. How many companies in Nigeria have actually responded to summons to appear before any of the legislative arms of government? And again, when you have, if you have trust that that companies can only do what is expected of them simply because they have to face the legislators, then you don't have an efficient system. A system should be automatic. A system should perform seamlessly without any intrusion by any third party. So that is why that's the beauty of the market system, because it is an autonomous, independent, self-regulatory system. So when you are there, you are regulated not by the whims and caprices of any individual, but the market actually disciplines you. So I keep referring to the discipline of the market. Now, the Securities and Allied Matters and all of that, they have the powers to rein in such a big monopoly like an NNPC. It is not straightforward. Now, let me take you back to antitrust issues in the developed world, say the United States or the rest of Europe. So you can see how serious they take any issue about antitrust. So whenever a company goes to a certain size, the next thing is that it splits up into components so that it will be easier to manage and to regulate. But in a system such as we have, where there is actually, if you ask me, there is no market here, because the market is one that is dominated by a sole actor, in this case, NNPC. So then you have other marginal, very small, actors in the market who do not determine anything. So NNPC still has all the powers to dictate. So it still has that dominant capacity in this market. And as a dominant player in the market, there is little anybody can do to rend its powers. So if government were actually committed to really getting an NNPC to address the concerns of competitiveness, transparency, accountability, the first thing is to split the company into bits and pieces. I mean, NNPC still regulates itself, so it regulates. Now, in the past, we used to have the Department of Petroleum Resources, which is an agency of, part of the whole system. But now they're all lumped together. They're under NNPC Limited. So you have he's a player in the market. He's also the regulator of the market. So I don't see how that really works. So if we're to have true competitiveness in the system, because for me, what can guarantee that we get the transparency, the accountability that we want from an NNPC is only when it is really disciplined by the market. So the market means that NNPC will not be a sole player. You need to have other players that have equal, maybe not so equal, but at least have some measure of market power. Not when you have one company that has the sole power. There is nothing anybody can do. You have a monopoly system here, a monopoly, business. So except we have that, I don't see the situation changing so radically from what we have all become familiar with.
All right, Dr. Bongo, before we go on a break, let me quickly ask you, we understand now that NNPC Limited can now raise money on the stock market platform and will be listed. So tell us, should we expect this to happen anytime soon? And will it have any impact on the capital markets?
Sure, it's going to have, when you have one of the biggest national oil companies in the world, the biggest in Africa, according to the information released yesterday, is valued above $200 billion. So surely it's going to have a massive impact on the stock market. And then how soon? Well, if you listen to Kerry, the GMD, it's the CEO now. So the CEO, so you can see how difficult it is. So it's just a matter of conversion. Because the board was also appointed by the government. All the people there were appointed by the government, not by the shareholders. So, these are the early days. So it's actually kind of difficult for me to apply, those nomenclature. The concept that we use to describe competitive market settings to NNPC, because right now it hasn't lived up to that bidding. So it's still to the best of my knowledge, still a government, a state project until we see what will happen. So yes, it will have an impact on the stock market. How soon will we see them listing on the bourse? Depends on the CEO. But I listened to Kerry yesterday. He said by maybe in a year's time, we will be expecting to see the shares on the floors of the stock exchange.
Dr. Bongo Adi, stay with us for a while. When we return, we get to look at how much influence the government will have had or has on this particular entity. So just stay with us and I'll be back with you in a while. Now, the newly unveiled NNPC is expected to become a commercially oriented and profit-driven national petroleum company independent of government influence, although government bodies remain its shareholders. So we will go on a break right now. When we return, we will ask our guest if this new entity will be totally free from government interference. We'll be back in a bit. According to President Muhammadu Buhari of Nigeria, the provisions of the Petroleum Industry Act 2021 have given the Nigerian petroleum industry a new impetus with an improved fiscal framework, transparent governance, and an enhanced regulation, which will operate without relying on government funding. But how well will it be free from government influence? And we still have Dr. Bongo Adi, Economist and Faculty, Lagos Business School, Pan-Atlantic University, African University, to tell us, Doctor, now the new NNPC is expected to be a commercially oriented entity, and according to what we know, it has government shareholders, as part of its handlers. So tell us, how truly independent do you think NNPC Limited would be when it has government bodies as its shareholders?
Again, as a company that operates using government license, okay, so it is still the sole licensee, when it comes to the exploitation oil and gas reserve of Nigeria. It still means that government has the controlling power within that system, regardless of what anybody says or what anybody does. So and again, the company has, of course, the energy company of the nation. So the strategic imperative is there for us to see. So government will definitely have return and overweening influence in the company. But where it is independent now, it has to do with decision making regarding where to allocate its investment, what to do with these funds. Of course, you had carried that they will no longer shoulder the burden of subsidy, which is a state issue. So it's no longer the burden of the NNPC. So that's not their responsibility. And also, they are no longer fettered by the Fiscal Responsibility Act. So they operate just as any firm. So when management come up with a business idea, they will run it through the board, and if it gets approval from the board, then they go ahead to execute. Now, where we need to be concerned is about the management of NNPC. How would that be constituted? Would that be constituted in a transparent manner? The board of NNPC, which I'm talking about the governance structure now, because that's the game changer. Okay, so who will determine the governance model? Who will appoint the board? How would the board be appointed? Would that be through a democratic, process as we have in a truly market system? So if that were to be the case, which is the interest of shareholders here, then yeah, you will expect that NNPC will continue to, shape up to market imperatives going forward. But as it is right now, we are still, this is the one of NNPC Limited. What we have is an inheritance, a legacy company, which is coming from government ownership to a public ownership. Everything that it has now, the management is the one appointed by the government. The board is the one that's been appointed by President Buhari. The board was reconstituted just barely, I think, sometime this year. So everything about it still speaks to it's kind of, I won't say forward-looking. It's actually looking behind. So maybe over the days we will see what will happen. But as it is right now, we have a legacy company. How would the company shake off its, this what I call the dirigist, legacy going forward? Now that it is trying to play in the competitive market environment, how will it change its attitude? How will it change its character? Now the days are there for us to see what will happen.
Well, let's quickly take a look at the Petroleum Industry Act. Would you describe it as a breath of fresh air, now championing the much needed reforms that are needed in the industry?
Yes, it is on the one hand, but on the other hand, the thing about the oil and gas sector, like some other technology intensive sectors, when a developing country, which is technology poor, you have to put that, we have to underline that. So when you are technology poor, and then you're now giving yourself power to run the show in an industry that is heavily technology dependent, then that's like, how do you put it? It's just like not being serious. The Petroleum Industry Act, when it comes to governance, transparency, building local capacity, and all of that, is a game changer. Nobody can contest that. But at the same time, we need to appreciate some real fact about the oil and gas industry. Now, when it comes to exploitation of the gas or oil, we do not have the technology, right? We still have to depend on the technology owners, who will now give us the license or the right to operate or to use what is rightfully theirs. Technologies they have patented over years. So that again imposes some kind of limits, some constraints on what you can do or how you can operate, because you will still be tied to the apron string of those technology owners. So that is the reality of oil, of the petroleum industry sector. Of the petroleum industry. So what can we gain? Because you've seen that most oil companies, have been selling off their assets in Nigeria over the past year and moving abroad. So why are they divesting in Nigeria? Okay, do we have the local capacity to really, take up this new mantle on our own terms? Do we have the human resource? Do we have the manpower? Do we have, again, the skill, not just skill, but I'm talking about equipment, the technology now. So that is where I see the some challenge in PIA. Otherwise, of course, everybody, it's been lauded as the greatest thing that has happened. Finally, light has shone and in this very clandestine industry.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Bongo Adi. Well, definitely we will continue with this conversation some other time. And we'd like to let you know that you have to keep faith with us, because we have another conversation coming up with us to do with the new pump price. That is the price of petrol in Nigeria. We get to discuss that after a short break. So we want to believe that you would hold faith with us even as we engage you more on a Business Edge. And that is the conversation. NNPC Limited will operate as a commercial, independent and viable entity and will be at par with its peers around the world. It is to adhere to its fundamental corporate values of integrity, excellence and sustainability, and that is according to President Muhammadu Buhari. Now we quickly go on a break, and when we return, Damilola Adeodiachi is here to take us through the latest in the international business stories that we have for you. Just stay with us.